Tamerlane returned from the Russian land to Samarkand in 1396 and set his eyes on India. Outwardly there were no special reasons for the invasion of India. Samarkand was safe. Tamerlane had a lot of worries and was an old man, especially by the standards of that time. However, the Iron Cromedary was off to war again. And his target was India. And spies reported on Delhi's internal difficulties, which should have made the campaign a success. Furthermore, it is worth bearing in mind that Timur followed the principle, there can be only one sovereign on earth, just as there is only one God in heaven. This principle was followed by other great rulers before Timur and after him. He could not look calmly at the Muslim Indian Empire, especially as the Delhi Sultanate was in decline at this time. The Tughlaqid dynasty, which originally controlled almost the entire subcontinent, had lost most of its holdings by the time of Timur's invasion. Furthermore, it is worth bearing in mind that Timur followed the principle, there can be only one sovereign on earth, just as there is only one God in heaven. This principle was followed by other great rulers before Timur and after him. He could not look calmly at the Muslim Indian Empire, especially as the Delhi Sultanate was in decline at this time. The Tughlaqid dynasty, which originally controlled almost the entire subcontinent, had lost most of its holdings by the time of Timur's invasion. The weak Sultan Mahmud Shah II sat in Delhi. The rest of the power was riven by turmoil. However, the Delhi Sultanate was renowned for its untold wealth, which was unequaled in the world. The idea of a campaign to India was not popular in Tamerlane's empire. The bulk of the nobility was tired of war, and wanted to enjoy the fruits of earlier victories rather than embark on a campaign in a distant southern country. The warriors did not like the climate in India, where it was hot as hell. The warlords argued that India's climate was suitable only for short raids to seize booty, not for a long campaign of deep invasion. Besides, the Delhi Empire enjoyed the prestige of its former glory, and they did not want to mess with a potentially strong adversary. This irritated Tamerlane, but he did not abandon his plan. A military movement started in 1398. The Cromion sent his grandson Pir Muhammad with 30,000 troops to Multan. Initially, the campaign fell well within the framework of classic raids. Indians had become accustomed to the fact that steppe tribesmen would periodically invade from Central Asia, loot the border regions, and then depart. Pir Muhammad was unable to take the fortress for quite a long time, and conquered it only in May. Timur sent there another corps headed by another grandson Muhammad Sultan. It was to operate in the southern part of the Himalayas, in the direction of Lahore. Timur's own troops began to move through Termez toward Samarkand. After crossing the Hindu Kush near Baglan, the Iron Thunder army passed An Arab. The first victims of the campaign were the Nuristan Kafirs, infidels. Towers were erected from the heads of infidels, reports historian of the Timurid era Sharafaddin Yazdi. Interestingly, Kafiristan Nuristan retained its ancient faith in an aggressive environment until the end of the 19th century. Only then, tired of persecution, the entire population converted to Islam, for which the area was named Nuristan, the country of those who, finally, received the light. The mountaineers had no wealth. They did not pose any threat. On August 15, 1398, a military council was convened in Kabul to formally announce the start of the campaign. Then, during October, the Ravi and Baya rivers were forcibly crossed. The armies of Tamerlane and his grandson Pir Muhammad joined, although the latter lost almost all his horses, they were killed by disease. Tamerlane's army took Talmina on October 13 and Shahnawaz on the 21st, where great booty was seized. The famous pyramids of human heads were built in this city. In early November, the emir was reinforced, and the fortresses of Ajudan and Bitnir fell, where pyramids of thousands of corpses were also built. Tamerlane's ferocious armies literally ravaged the captured areas. Only the Rajputs, a special ethno-cultural group of warriors, were able to offer worthy resistance to the terrible enemy. They were led by Rai Dul Chand. The Rajputs fought to the death, but they lacked the military experience of Timur. When Timur's warriors stormed their fortress, the townspeople began to set fire to their houses and threw themselves into the fire. In case of an enemy attack, when the situation seemed hopeless, the Rajputs practiced mass suicide. Men killed their own wives and children and then killed themselves. About 10,000 men, many of whom were wounded, were surrounded but refused to surrender, and all fell in battle. Knowing what true courage was, Timur was delighted. However, he ordered the fortress to be razed to the ground. At the same time he spared the enemy's leader and presented him with a sword and a dressing gown as a sign of respect. On December 13, the troops of Iron Cromedary approached Delhi. Here Tamerlane was met by the army of Sultan Mahmud. Tamerlane's warriors first encountered a huge army of elephants. Some researchers put the number of elephants in the Indian army at 120 heads, others, at some hundreds. In addition, the Delhi army was armed with fire pots, incendiary grenades filled with resin, and rockets with iron tips that exploded when they touched the ground. Initially Timur, facing an unknown enemy, chose defensive tactics. Trenches were dug, earth ramparts poured, and soldiers took cover behind large shields. Timur decided to show military cunning by showing the enemy his indecisiveness, or he wanted to test the strength of the enemy by giving him the initiative. However, the enemy was in no hurry to go on the attack. Sitting on the defensive indefinitely was not an option, as it was undermining the troops. Furthermore, Tamerlane's commanders had drawn his attention to the danger in the rear, where his army held thousands of prisoners. At the crucial moment of battle they could rise and have influence on a course of battle. Timur ordered all prisoners to be put to death, and threatened to personally kill anyone who disobeyed him out of greed or pity. The order was carried out within an hour. It is possible that Timur himself had devised this cruel but effective move. Huge live prey was weighing on the army. Many believed that they had had enough loot, the campaign was successful, and they could turn around without engaging a strong and unknown enemy. Now the warriors were in need of new slaves. Warriors, drunk with blood, were eager to go into battle. Following custom, Timur turned to astrologers. They announced that the day was bad. Apparently, they were afraid of battle themselves. The Cromedary disregarded their advice. "God is with us," he shouted, and moved his forces forward. The battle took place on December 17, 1398, at the river Jamma, near Panipat. The battle was fought with mixed success. To stop the attack of elephants, these living war towers, Timur ordered to dig a ditch and throw metal spikes into it. This did not stop the Delhi warriors, however, and the elephants made large gaps in the fighting lines of Tamerlane's army. Then Timur's warriors sent camels, or buffaloes, loaded with burning sawdust, bales of slum and branches of conifers to attack the elephants. The animals, maddened by the fire, scared away a considerable number of elephants, which rushed back, crushing their masters. However, it was Timur's cavalry, as the cavalry of Alexander the Great had done in his time, that put the victory point. Timur's cavalry finally broke the enemy lines. As Timur himself said, "Victory is a woman. It is not always given, and one must be able to master it." The vanquished Sultan fled to Gujarat. On December 19 Timur's army took one of the most beautiful and greatest cities of the time without a fight. Timur, at the request of the local Muslim nobles, who promised a huge ransom, posted guards around the rich quarters. However, this did not save the inhabitants of the city. Intoxicated by violence and looting, the looters destroyed one block after another, and the resistance of local residents, who in some places tried to defend themselves, only increased their fury. The marauders called in reinforcements and attacked the Delhites with redoubled fury. Delhi was destroyed and looted, the inhabitants were largely slaughtered, and Tamerlane pretended that this had happened without his consent. He said, "I did not want it." True, as was his custom, he tried to save the lives of the clergy, skilled artisans, and scholars. The army after the Delhi pogrom was literally bathed in gold and jewels. Such immeasurable riches accumulated over many generations were not found in Khwarezm, Hord, Persia and Herat. Any warrior could boast of sacks of gold, semi-precious stones, articles of noble metals, etc. Behind each common warrior there were 100 to 150 slaves. Thus, if Timur's main aim was originally to plunder India, he succeeded. After spending half a month in Delhi, Timur moved towards the Ganges. On his way he met no resistance. India's strongest fortress, Myrtle, surrendered without a fight on January 1, 1399. The townsfolk were slaughtered. The Muslims did not like the Hindu custom of requiring women to commit suicide after the death of their husbands. The Turks crossed the Ganges River, where a decisive battle with Raja Kuan was to take place, but his army did not even join the battle and fled in chaos. On March 2, 1399 all the huge booty went by caravan ways to Samarkand. According to the chroniclers, it was carried by thousands of camels. 90 captured elephants carried stones from Indian quarries to build a mosque in Samarkand. The army itself resembled a migrating people who led herds of animals, women and children with them. The Iron Army, renowned throughout the East for its swiftness of crossings, was now barely making 7 kilometers a day. On April 15 Timur crossed the Sir Darya and arrived in Kesh. Immediately after returning from India Tamerlane has started preparation for the big 7-year campaign to the west.